Hey guys, so today I want to talk to you about moving across country. I'm going to talk to you about why you might want to consider it. Not necessarily moving across country, but being willing to relocate, what benefits it can have, and what my experience was moving to, 2,500 miles away and not knowing anybody, never even having been to the state, and what I was expecting and what actually happened. So you can see in the background here, this is basically, I'm from Los Angeles, essentially, in Southern California, and I relocated to Tampa. It was 37 hours of driving and about 2,500 miles. It was a long drive that never felt like it was going to end, but we inched our way down here, and I drove, did it in about 3 days. So 3 very long days of driving. Now, why did I take a job all the way across country? Quite literally ocean to ocean. Excuse me. So when I was applying for jobs, one of the things I noticed was that I was going against 300 applicants in the very condensed but very job heavy area of Los Angeles, and I was getting very few calls back. Now the calls that I was getting back was for a lower amount of money than I wanted to take for a developer job, and I felt I was being taken advantage of, especially with such a high cost of living. Now, I also noticed that I was getting a lot more calls back when I was applying to less condensed areas for a lot more money and a lower cost of living. So it made the choice for me very easy. Now, I had always wanted to get out of Los Angeles because of the traffic and ridiculous house prices. Just to give you an idea, I looked it up the other day to see what the median house is in the entire state of California. It's $470,000 for the average house in California, which is kind of insane. Now, if you want to go in Southern California, it goes much higher. Now, in comparison, an area like Florida, I believe it's around 220. So literally more than half less. So that was one of the things that played into it. I like to do research on areas that I would want to live, and I happen to be living in one of the most condensed and one of the most highest taxed and highest cost of living areas. When I looked it up, Florida was number 37th on the highest cost of living, while California was 11th, and which was surprised me. I thought it was going to be 2 or 3, maybe 1 even, but I hear New York's pretty expensive. Now, so that was my thought process when I went and accepted a job 2,500 miles away. And one question you guys have asked me for a while was, were you afraid? Like, and I get that question. I understand. One thing that I kind of thought my father thought was when he came and visited me not too long ago, we had talked about me coming down here, and he was giving me some nonsense advice that I didn't agree with about the job market that I kind of think he has outdated advice on. And I said, look, I know you think I'm an idiot because I move across country for this and that, and I actually know what I'm doing. He's like, I don't think you're an idiot. I think you're ballsy. And it kind of enlightened me a little bit. Now, why am I bringing that up? Well, I think that when you take there's times to take educated risks. Now, could I have gone to Tampa and really just hated life and whatnot? Yeah. I mean, I've never been to Florida. I don't know anybody in Florida. The only thing I know about Florida is the occasional crazy news articles that I see on YouTube, right? And like I think that like right before this, I remember talking to my brother. My brother's like, "Oh, you're moving to Florida." He's like, "Isn't that the place where the guy ate the bath salts and started eating people's faces?" So I was like, "Yes, that's Florida." But so. Why am I saying educated risk? Because when you start educating yourself about, okay, well, the job market is better here for me, it's a lower cost of living, and what's most important when you're trying to get your foot in the door? Getting your foot in the door. Now, once you get the foot in the door, you get that resume experience, you become much more valuable, and if you have your heart set on going back, you can, right? You can say, okay, well, I have 2 years of experience, which is a decent amount, believe it or not, right? So it's what I'm learning is it's a fairly decent amount. Like 5 years, you're like a senior developer at this point in time. So say you just leave for 5 years and come back, stockpile your money, use it for a down payment for a house, and go back to where you came from, right? Los Angeles for me, or wherever it is. I'm not going back to LA, so don't worry about that. But you guys get the point. Now, when I arrived, what was I afraid of? I was afraid of not being able to find a room for rent. When I first came down, April and I, about 6 months before I took this job, had started rekindling our relationship. If you had watched my thing about being a developer, I talked about a time where we broke up, and we didn't speak to each other for, I want to say, 4 months, 5 months, and eventually I convinced her to forgive me, and we were still, even though we had been talking to each other for about 4 or 5 more months, and I took the job, and I told her, hey, I'm moving 2,500 miles away. I don't expect you to come with me, but it is too good of an opportunity for me, and I'm going to take it regardless if you come with me or not. Now, some people can take that as a very offensive thing, right? You should, your love above all else. I hear you, man, but I was tired of being broke, and I wanted that that experience. And I offered, to me, I thought I was giving a pretty good deal. Come down. I know you don't have a job. I'll pay for what I can, and we'll go from there. And she didn't give me an answer till I was already down here, and then she just missed all this hotness too long, and then she came on down. So she ended, that was probably the only thing I was really concerned about, was just like that was one of those things where I didn't know what was going to happen. Now I was hopeful, and things worked out, and I'm very glad that it did, and we've been able to start a nice life together. But that's going to be a different experience for you. Maybe you don't have somebody. Now, there's two ways that you can look about that. You may say, look, I'm going to an area, I don't know anybody. You know, Dylan, you had your girlfriend who came down with you and forgave your dumbass, and you had her, right? I come home every day and I see somebody that, is essentially my best friend, and we talk about work and whatnot, and I'm lucky to have a social media channel where I can put out something out there, and I read every one of your guys' comments, and I feel like I'm having millions of conversations. But you're saying, look, I don't have that significant other come with me. What can I do? Well, I honestly think you would have an easier time moving across country if you're single than with a family. There's a lot less things to juggle, and I don't have a family, but if given two opposite ends of the spectrum, from what I would say is that as long as you move to and you're going to move to a city more than likely, you're not just going to move into, somewhere in Kansas that isn't Kansas City. like you're going to move to areas where there are people, and I think one of the best things you can do is just start dating, right? And it's not. We're software developers, right? So the bulk of us aren't going to be the best dating, but we're also employed individuals who are working hard, and so that's it. And it depends what your age at, right? I feel like as I've been getting slightly closer to 30, the employed individual who has his shit together is a much more attractive man than the guy at 20 who's not. So perhaps I'm a little biased about the dating, but I think for you guys, if you're single, that's something where you can go and you say, okay, cool, I can go out and meet people. Like I can go on Tinder, man. I just swipe right and super like and something like that, right? Whatever you kids are doing nowadays, that's what you can do. And I think you'll adjust very quickly. And you'll join their group of friends sometimes if you end up dating somebody long term, or maybe you'll just make some friends that way. Now, what about if that's not you, right? What about if that's not you? Because the biggest thing for me is I don't necessarily think it's a culture thing. So I went from a very liberal city of California to a kind of a swing state that leans Republican, right? Like when my brother came down from Portland and we were walking down through downtown St. Pete, he saw, and mind you, he's Portland. If you're not familiar with Portland, Oregon, it's a city of hippies, essentially. And I love Portland, Oregon. I plan to live there one day, but essentially it's a much more liberal city than the average place, and very leftist city, if you will. And so he came down here, and on one of the bars they had a Blue Lives Matter sticker, and he was just like, oh, like it was like it was shining light through him. So not everybody is going to to love their new place of origin, but I don't think it's going to impact your life as much as people think, right? We're all humans. We're all living day to day. Most of the time, we just want to go home. We want to make sure that our kids are taken care of, our loved ones are taken care of, that we have health insurance, we have food in the house, and we have rent, and hopefully we can save more money that's not paycheck to paycheck. So I don't think most areas you have anything to worry about. Now, I went from a very liberal state to a less than liberal state, and I could tell you it didn't make two cents of difference in my life. So that's one thing to consider, though, because a lot of people have this very big identity politics, and I think you shouldn't look at the world so black and white in general. But rather than go down that route, I will leave it at that. Now, in terms of the social is really where I think it gets. You really have to start thinking outside the box, because not everybody can handle. I do very well on talking to people on the phone. I do very well keeping myself busy, but sometimes people can't keep themselves busy, and they need to make friends. They need actual physical communication, and that's a whole different thing. Now, if you're going to do that, one thing I can highly recommend is building out your network, right? Going to those meetups and talking with people and finding people who are interested in similar things. And if dating's not your thing, you have the meetups. Other than that, just try and find some hobbies and clubs and work on projects. One of the best things, honestly, and I don't mean any disrespect to any of my friends that are in Los Angeles, is that it's just April and me and the cats. And I've never been happier. And it's part of it working as a developer and having money, right? To do simple things like buy groceries and pay rent on time and all this sort of stuff. But part of it is I've been able to be so laser focused in the last 10, 11 months because I don't have any distractions. I don't have any family events to go to. I don't have any friends telling me, hey, let's go out on Saturday night and do this and that. And it's not that I don't enjoy those things, but at some point you get in a different phase of your life. And I've for the last 2-3 years, I have been in this phase where, although I enjoy my time that I get rarely with my family and friends now, what my goals in life are to get my salary to 100,000, to get my YouTube channel to 100,000. And YouTube, I'm coming for that silver play button, baby. Keep it warm for me, all right? And so, like, you know what I mean? I have these goals that I want to work towards every single day to accomplish them. And one thing, I want to become a better developer, right? And so what am I doing? I'm studying every single day. And when my mom and brother were here, it was really hard for me to get out of that groove. I didn't want to get out of that groove. I was afraid of falling out of that groove. And I like being in it, right? I like being busy. I like doing these things. And I like coming home from work, and I like doing my own work, right? Because I want to be a better developer, because I have these goals. And it's given me this sort of, I can hit the ground running for a couple years before I ever have to think about relocating elsewhere. And in that couple of years where I don't have the outside distractions, and I don't have any children, and I don't have any family, and I don't have any of this, I've been able to let me get laser focused about what it is in my life right now I want to set up for the next stage of my life. And that's one of the greatest things I've got out of moving 2,500 miles away from everybody I know. And I really don't mean that to anybody who watches this. Like this will be the one video my father shares with my entire family, and then they just disown me. But so that's really what I've learned about this journey across the country. One thing I learned on the drive is that there's a lot of Waffle Houses. I had no idea how many Waffle Houses there were in this country. That was interesting. But in terms of relocating, just really think about, first off, do your research, right? When you get offers out of state, if you're willing to relocate, make sure you understand the tax code. One state that I was willing to look at instantly, and one of the reasons I did, because I already knew that Florida didn't have any state taxes. It saves me about $4,000 or $5,000 a year. I get $4,000 to $5,000 in my pocket a year compared to what I'd be having just in state tax in California. So these are things to consider. The social aspect, I think, is really the most important for most people, and it depends on what type of person you are. I kind of have this sort of attitude that everybody at some point in their life has to do what's best for their career and for their life. And maybe I'm just a little too practical, and maybe I'm an exception to the norm. But I like to think that, and it's hard, right? It's hard to do that. And I don't want to sound like I'm too, like, oh, I'm just this hard man who's just hardworking and I don't have any feelings or anything like that, because that's not the case, man. When I saw my mom, I saw my brother, and I saw my dad, it's hard, especially as your folks are getting older, right? I'm 29, I'll be 30 soon, and my folks are going into that senior citizen category, and you know, one day that it's, you know, they're not going to be here, so every year I spend away from them, it's hard, right? So it's one of those things of, I understand I have to get my career together, I have to do all this sort of stuff, but I do want to live close to my family, and I do want to be able to do these things, man. So, you know, I do miss them at times. I definitely miss Mexican food, man. I don't know what, the Mexican food in Los Angeles is fire. I don't know what's going on down here in Florida. You guys got to get it together. On that note, guys, I will leave you with this. If you are considering moving across country for a job and the money makes sense and the location makes sense, keep in mind the type of individual you are. Like my girlfriend, for the first 6 months, really struggled not being able to talk with people on the regular, and she still texts her friends and everything like that, but she required a lot more of my attention than I realized before, because she had this void fill, and so she struggled a little bit with the relocation more than I did in that aspect. So that's why I want to bring it up. So make sure that you're the right person that can go into a city that you know nobody and just be like, yo, man, I'm here, baby. You know, so that's my 2 cents about relocating across the country. I'd love to know where you guys have relocated and what your experiences was, because I'm just one guy, right? And I relocated coast to coast. If you have a similar story where you moved out of state for a role, was it successful? Did you enjoy it? Or was it a horror story? Scared people away? Whatever it is, I just want us to have an open conversation, guys. Appreciate you for watching the video. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share, and support me on Patreon, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Special thanks to our sponsors, Dev Mountain. If you're looking for a coding bootcamp where tuition and housing is included, definitely check them out. Appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.